Hello again. David Bolton here with part 3 of Deconstructing and Reconstructing Astrology. So, in parts 1 and 2 of this series, we have seen what the equator is, a great circle. We have seen in part 2 two other great circles, namely the meridian, this orange line, and the prime vertical, the green line. And both of them, well, I should say in the crosshairs here, is the place of birth. In this case, my place of birth. In case you're wondering, this PH means pole of the horizon. Your place of birth will always be the pole of the horizon. And I'm telling you that because this part 3 is about precisely that. Your city's horizon. Now, horizon has different meanings. You might think when you say look out over the ocean or whatever, as far as you can see, that's the horizon. Well, that's one definition of horizon. If you've ever watched a ship go out further and further, you'll notice how it gradually disappears because the Earth is curving, right? But that distance isn't really too great. That's just a number of miles. I think they say if you're about 6 feet tall, you can maybe see about, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles, and then things start disappearing because of the curvature of the Earth. We're not talking about that horizon. We're talking about more an astronomical horizon. And in, well, here, astronomy, Google Earth, in astrology, the horizon refers to a great circle. Once again, a great circle. Once again, a circle that will divide the Earth into 2 different parts. Now, every great circle has its pole. Let's go over that. I think I mentioned that in the first video. For the equator, we have 2 obvious poles, the North Pole and the South Pole. A pole is defined as the point that's precisely in the center of that hemisphere, of each hemisphere. And the North Pole will be exactly 90 degrees from every point on the equator. Obviously, if you're at the North Pole, I don't think I have it marked in here. Oh, yes, I do. There it is, the North Pole, exact. If you're at the North Pole, any place you go, you take 1 step and you're going south. You cannot go east or west. You cannot go north because you're as far north as you can be. So you're always going south when you start from the North Pole. And the North Pole is a point that's exactly 90 degrees from every point along this great circle that is the equator. And the same goes for the South Pole. The South Pole, you take 1 step in any direction and you're going north towards the equator, right? But now, any great circle will have its pole, and that will be defined as the point that's 90 degrees from every point on the great circle here. So we could even take the meridian line and find a point that's 90 degrees away, and that would be the pole of the meridian. But in this video, we're going to talk a little about the horizon. The horizon will be a great circle that's going to divide the Earth into 2 halves, and the pole is going to be the place of birth. The place of birth will be exactly 90 degrees from every point along this new great circle that I'm going to add now. May I have a drum roll, please? There it is. This is the horizon of Baltimore, so to speak. My horizon, where I was born, right? In other words, if you go around this circle here, every single point on this circle is exactly 90 degrees from my place of birth, Baltimore, right? So Baltimore here, if we see it, well, now we won't see the horizon because it's right on the edge of that. You see it up here, right? You see it over here. So that is the horizon in the sense that we use it in astrology. So let's see what we've done here all together. We have now 4 great circles. We have the equator. We have the meridian that passes going from the North Pole, passes through the place of birth, going directly south, directly due south till it gets to the South Pole. Then we have the prime vertical, and that goes east and west from the place of birth. But it's not parallel to the equator because then it wouldn't be a great circle. No, it has to go down here to cut the Earth into 2 halves. So we've cut the Earth into 2 halves in a number of ways, actually. And then we've drawn in now the horizon, every point of which is 90 degrees from the place of birth. Now you see there are different intersection points. where these two, prime vertical and meridian, meet, right there in the crosshairs, is my place of birth, Mercy Hospital, Baltimore, Maryland. Here's another intersection, the meridian and the equator. Going eastwards, well, here's something interesting. We have the prime vertical that's going east, but really going towards the south, because I was born in the northern hemisphere, so it must go somewhat towards the south to divide the Earth into two halves, because it's a great circle once again. And here we have a point where this great circle of the prime vertical, the green line, intersects the equator, the yellow line, and also it intersects the horizon of Baltimore. This we're going to see is a very important point in astrology. It's often called either the equatorial equator or the east point. But it's not the east point that's normally used in astrology. That east point is a point that's on the ecliptic, which we haven't drawn in here yet. That's going to be, you've guessed it, part 4, when we start talking about the ecliptic, the apparent path along which all the planets travel, more or less, and where the sun can always be found in its apparent path around the Earth. That will be the 5th great circle that we'll be dealing with, an extremely important one in astrology. But now you have a sort of background. Now you understand, a bit at least, these other great circles, and we're going to be using them a whole lot to expand and deepen our knowledge of astrology and just what it is that we see in a natal chart. So in part 4, we're going to talk about the ecliptic, and we might even have a look at a natal chart to see how all of this figures in the normal two-dimensionally drawn natal chart. Now, I'll say it again, I've said it before, Google Earth Pro you can download for free. Just Google it, you'll find it, you'll be able to get it, install it on your computer. Omnicycles with Google Earth capability is also free. And at the end of this video, you'll see a screen with the download addresses for the Omnicycles software. Have a good day, and I'll see you in part 4. Bye now.